Oh, Seven Citizens, Black here from Casa Black Gaming, and today we have a few things to go over with the first roadmap update of 2023 having gone live now, and there's some changes, some of which my 319 video predicted, and then again some that were a little muted. Now this is just not me reading over each change, but more of an analysis on the changes that will be briefly summed up. I've been tracking any changes that have happened over the last few months so I can give you more insight on what is going on with your anticipated features. Now let's skip the normal channel promoting and get right into the roadmap. Alright, before we begin, I must first point out that the nature of the monthly report is that it's constantly updated and changed. Now sometimes that's week to week. Just because we might not hear about a change happening when they do their every other Wednesday update does not mean that things do not get adjusted or changed before or after. Now another thing is that my report is just telling you when something shows its work is being completed on the roadmap. Sometimes there could be more teams that need to pick up these items and their work might be added to the roadmap at a later time. Vehicles are a great example of this. Getting through the various phases such as white box or gray box does not always mean that all of the work is complete, because something like audio is usually the last thing to be done on a ship before it gets released. Now sometimes teams work on things and their work is not noted, so again, things are not always quite what they seem. Any guesses I make here are my own, and I'm sometimes wrong, but I like the discussions we have about the various items and welcome those of you who think I'm wrong to say so. Alright, so now let's get to the roadmap. So the big news with this update is that we are confirmed to have a 319 update before Invictus, which if you watched my two videos I released a couple of weeks ago about 319, you will know that I pretty much said this is how I thought they would do it. 318 being such a huge tech hurdle and taking so long to go live, but meanwhile teams were still chugging away on more gameplay features that have been pretty much piling up and needing a release. Now, since we're not having another huge tech update until later this year with server meshing, a 319 update seemed very likely to me, with many of the features that have been marked completed. For a complete list of some of the things we could possibly see in a 319 patch, including ships, be sure to check out those two videos. I'm going to try to link one at the end of this one. Now regardless, we got confirmation on a few of the items that are still tentative, with hints at more to be added, as there should be, with so many more things that are completing now or will be completed within the next month or so, which is plenty of time to still be added into the 319 branch, which, as mentioned in the roadmap, will be an extenuation of the 318 branch instead of a separate all-new branch, and it'll make things easier for them to continue to add stability to 318 and save time for the build to get it into testers' hands so it can be ready to go by Invictus week. So those things that were added to 319 so far are the Lorville cityscape, which was to be expected. There are also 3 gameplay features being added, those being the new player experience, which again in my video I stated it made sense to get this done in time for Invictus with so many new players trying out the verse for the first time. We're also getting salvage contracts, which is something new we only just heard about a few weeks ago, but yet I still mentioned as being possible for 319. Now the other thing is something that was not really on the roadmap, and that is some new missions for Ghost Hollow with some PvP elements to it as well, which is nice to see because it's such a nice area that is hardly visited after most completed the missions, with very few returning that often. I shot a scenery video there for my other channel where I do ambient scenes, and I was like there for maybe 4 to 5 hours without seeing anyone show up, and other times when I go there it's pretty deserted, so it's not a popular spot, but that's about to change as it should. Anyway, that is the additions to the release view. Now let's move on to the deliverable changes. Alright, so with the deliverables update, I gotta say I was disappointed to see so few changes, and none of the June dates that have been on the roadmap for months now were pushed out. Now, I believe that some of these features still have months to go beyond June, but I will still report them as they currently still appear on the roadmap until we get that push out date. Let's move on to those items that have been on the roadmap but received changes, whether mentioned in the roadmap or things that I noticed from my own tracking. I will do a month in video showing each item that showed progress, comparing it to what the monthly report said versus the roadmap. So look out for those videos as well. And if you like what I do here and appreciate the work I put out into my videos, then please like, subscribe, and comment, but also share my channel with others because it's greatly appreciated. Alright, so there were a total of 6 items where the dates were adjusted and all of those were pushed out. The first is Bounty Hunting version 2. This feature will enable players to track criminals through their Mobiglass security app that will be linked to distress beacons, comm arrays, air traffic control systems, cameras, and NPC informants, not to mention their Google search histories. I'm kidding about Google, of course. Or am I? Anyway, bounty targets will soon know what us humans go through with how our info is tracked, and everyone and our mother knows where we are at all times and will be reporting back. This feature will bring bounty hunting into a whole new realm, and I personally can't wait for it, but it was delayed with its original end date marked for March of 2023. It has now been pushed back to the end of May, so its chances of making it to 319 just dropped off the radar completely. Pretty sure you can lump the Prone Tier 1 update in with that as well, so you can scratch both of those and anything else dealing with the new bounty hunting into late summer at the earliest, and maybe even fall. Okay, so the next feature that has been delayed is Cutting Tier 2. Now this feature is to allow our multi-tool to have a new cutting attachment, which, by the way, these attachments are starting to get kind of annoying. We need a multi-tool with a button you can press or a dial to turn to make it switch between the various attachments instead of having to carry so many different attachments, but I digress. Anyway, this feature was originally supposed to be completed by the end of May, and now it won't be completed until the end of June. It was a long shot to make it into 319, and I pretty much thought it would not make it until we got more salvaging anyway, so this was not a letdown, just letting you guys know. Alright, the next feature to be delayed was Flak Ammunition, which was scheduled to be completed at the end of May and is now showing an end date of the end of June. Again, this was not something that was expected to be out before Invictus, and so no huge loss here. Flak Ammunition is just one of the many new ammunition types being added into the verse this year. It's going to be very exciting for that. Now the next delay is with the Hull C. Now, the work on this was originally supposed to end mid-December, but that work has now been pushed off to the end of February, which is just a couple of weeks away. Now this ship could very well be in 319, but will it? I am hesitant to say it will, simply because trade is in such a sorry state right now when it comes to trying to fill the larger ships. And add to that the largest cargo space by a lot into the game would make this ship almost useless unless we get some trading changes with how much you can purchase, not to mention docking needs some work since this ship is so large it cannot land on a planet or hangar. Now they might put it in anyway with the hopes of just seeing how things go with it. There are some trade terminal changes in 318, and so maybe they will open it up some more for 319, and if Tony Z's quantum work is really nearing completion as the current roadmap shows, it's possible, although I think unlikely, but possible we could see the Hull C get some solid use. It's iffy and I feel unsure about predicting it for 319, but what the hell, I think we'll see it before Invictus. The next delay is also a vehicle, that being the RSI Lynx. Now it originally was set to be complete at the end of February and has now been pushed back a month to the end of March, which is not a huge delay and I think should still make it in time for 319. The only question is, what the hell is this thing going to offer that is different than the Ursa? We have received no sneak peeks for it, and I don't know how long, and very little info is out there about it. I'm hoping for a medical variant, but we'll see. And Lynx doesn't really sound like a medical ship anyway, but we'll see. Okay, so the very last delay or change in the roadmap is for the weapon misfire and wear feature. Now it was pushed back from April to the end of June. This is a significant pushback and one that might not mean a whole lot to most players, myself included, because with wear on our weapons, that'll mean we will have to worry about our guns possibly breaking down, unless they just mean that they will look worn. Either way, it's not a huge thing to be missing out on. If it is like a decay rate with weapons being able to become broken, I will only enjoy this feature if that means we can repair them ourselves with a resource, which would be another form of crafting. But if they just break without a way to repair them, it will just add another bit of tediousness to a game that can be over tedious about supplies already. We'll see how that goes and hopefully get more insight on this feature later. Alright, and that concludes this monthly roadmap deep dive into just the changes and new items. Now I hope you found this info useful and easy to follow along with. I like staying informed, and I think this will allow me and even you to be able to slap down some useful info when someone says that something is or is not being worked on, or how often a feature gets stealth delayed, because as my information shows you here, things get moved around all the time, and if you don't stay on top of it, you'll swear you're going crazy. That's also a little peek into how long something takes to create, especially ships, so we can better guess what will come in the future. Now anyway, remember to be kind to your fellow gamer. Don't drive yourself crazy trying to remember the dates of these features. Let me go crazy for you. And stay positive, citizens.